Good morning, people and GMs and DMs alike. I hope everybody's having a great morning. Hope it is a great part of your week. I hope everybody is having a lot of gaming madness and fun. Always good to have. So today's topic is going to be a real dive-in topic. It is the homebrew campaign and designing a homebrew campaign. Now, you hear the term used a lot. Basically, that means you are designing it from scratch. You might take a couple concepts out of someone's other ideas. Maybe it's out of a sci-fi book. Maybe it's out of a fantasy book. Maybe it's just out of your mind. And so when doing a homebrew campaign, there's a couple things I want to go through that are really important to consider when doing that and when designing that in order to be successful. Number one, you got to look at the two base questions that we always talk about when you're designing is goal of the people that are going to be on that world, and then what sort of obstacles lie in that world for people who want to reach adventuring goals. So when you're designing that, you have to think about a couple items that go under the goal. Number one, how did the world come about? What brought it into existence? What created the various places you're going to draw on your maps? And why is it the way it is today? So a timeline is a real important thing. A lot of people don't design a timeline for their world. I think that's important, especially with major events that shifted countries, provinces, rulership, societies, cultures. You have to look at all those things and put that into the timeline itself. So I would suggest at least including 40 events on your world timeline that had significance over X amount of thousands of years and what led to where things are the way today. So I think that's very important, especially if a country was founded, a city was founded, a city-state, something important, or if a ruler made a significant difference in stopping an evil or a good or establishing a society. Those are all things that are going to enrich the experience for your players. And when they use their knowledge of the world for either nobility or history, they can actually dig in and live out that history a little bit by remembering. And you get a chance to narrate a little bit what happened in those events. So that's one thing that's going to be important is the timeline. The second thing that's important is how is the world today geographically? Is there one continent with lots of little islands around it? Are there multiple continents? Did they come from one continent? Were there cataclysmic events that led one civilization to decline and the world to grow up the way it did? Those are all things that are going to come into play. As you design out your world, you put in your mountains, your hills, your cities, your countries. Think about first the layout of the world. So that's a very important part of it. Next, you're going to look at what countries or realms or societies have grown up over the years and where are they now. So write out the countries you want to have and the types of countries. Write out the human races that are there. Kind of like Paizo did with the Inner Sea. They wrote out the different races. So there was races that represent all the different ethnicities like there is on Earth. Some of them are blended ethnicities. You can leave out ethnicities. It's all up to you. It's your world. In some cases, you may say that a serpent society was there first, since the dinosaurs are usually the main event in a lot of worlds. So the serpent societies were the old societies, and they died off for some reason or some event, and then the human slaves or the humans rose up. You can have a lot of different ways your world came about, but really think out. Sorry, I paused. I love my software sometimes. So really think out how it all came about physically into these countries and what countries are prominent. Do they have animosities with each other? If so, why? Why does this country hate this country? Why is this country against this country? I think, it goes back a little bit to the timeline, but it also goes into the layout geographically. It may have been wars that they took over other people's lands, so other cities that used to belong to the other empire may be integrated in and hate being a part of that empire. So you can do a lot with that. Remember that when you design that in. I think with countries, the key things with a country is languages, ethnicity, flag, rulership style, feudalistic, republic. What is the main thing? Is it an authoritarian? Is it a majocracy? Is it a matriarchy? Is it a patriarchy? Is it a religious society formed under one form of worship? These are all the things that you want to integrate into these countries, and I wouldn't do them all the same. Again, not all the countries came up the same on the earth or in a lot of these fantasy realms that are written about. So you really have to think about those things. And then also, where's the capital? How many large cities are there? How many small cities and hamlets and villages? Where are they located? Are they near a river? River is usually a life source for most people. Are they near a forest where they can get wood? Are they near mountains for mining and doing trade? Are they a farming agrarian society that's near the richest farmland? Those are all things that kind of play in. How does their economy work? What do they have in their economy? So that's something you can look at when you're doing that, is designing all those different things. Next thing that will come is, and I think is really important, where do you want to put the party to start them? Do you want to put them in a large city? Do you want to put them in a small city? And see, that's where you're going to flesh out. I say everything else is definitely needing fleshing out, especially if they're going to adventure there. So I would pick, where's the party going to start, and I would really detail that out. Who are the city rulers? Where are the major places of interest? Are there taverns? Are there inns? Are there stores? What are the names of those stores? Who runs those stores? What are their class mixes and alignments? Why is all that important? Because your players are going to interact with these people. Sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it'll be nefarious. And so you have to be ready to deal with what's going to come from the party. Have a great stock of maybe template NPCs that you want to use for each one. Or you can get very intricate if you really feel the urge and use something like Hero Labs or some other software and really populate a lot of the NPCs in character sheet format, so that way you have them ready to go. Will there be people that can help the party? Will there be groups and societies that will oppose the party? What are those societies? These are all important to flesh out. Is there a thieves guild in town? Almost every town has a thieves guild unless it's a very lawful society. And even then, there's crime and corruption. Are there any press gangs? Are there any counter groups or rebellions that are trying to rise up and overthrow the government and the establishment? Are there bandits? Are there crooks? Are there monster tribes that are threatened by the society that's near them? All these are going to play into enriching the experience for your players and allowing them to adventure outside maybe your main adventure, and gives you new paths that you can take them and new storylines. So you want to really flesh out the area they're going to be. Expand out into the country, especially if you're going to have an adventure around the country. Flesh out the cities and towns you're going to go to, just like you did that starting city, but you may not go as deep into the details. You want to just give them enough that then they can go back to their home base, which is that city you started them in, and continue to work out from there to the different places they need to go. Do a couple of the surrounding countrysides as well as mountain ranges and flesh those out a little bit. What are the dangers there? What are the things the party can encounter? Will these be a friendly society to them, or will they be negative? Again, your party may not all want to be from one area. They may want to be a mix. So you've got to give them a little bit with the different societies. Maybe there's an elven conclave near there. Maybe there's a dwarven city, so a tower city or something where the dwarves built out of the mountain to really rise up and be a part of civilization. Maybe there's a halfling shire that is near there. Maybe there is a gnome conclave that's near there, or a traveling conclave. Maybe there's traveling tribes that go through the land that the party can run into. Again, fleshing all this out, I know it's a lot of detail, but really in a homebrew, this is the kind of things you want to do in order to give depth to your area. I'm not asking you to write an inner sea guide book, okay? That's difficult to do sometimes when you first start out. But at least provide enough details that it makes sense so when the characters ask the question, why are things the way they are right now? Why is this city this way? Why are these people my enemies? Why? What can I go see? What can I go do? Where can I go explore? All the W questions, and also H's as well with the how. So those are all important to be able to answer for the party. Again, it's not about your campaign. It's not about your homebrew. It is about them designing their story. And so you want to have enough color commentary in that story to really help them to be successful. Then flesh out the ruins, the old places. Maybe there was an old society in the history there that had a city ruin that was there that fell into disrepair over thousands of years. Maybe there's an old haunt. Maybe there's a city that was destroyed during war that is haunted. Maybe there's an old keep that used to be there, but it fell apart. Maybe there's a cult that's going on, so they have a little cultist site that they're working from. Those are all areas you want to flesh out on your map, but somewhere the players can't see. Again, they're not going to have all this knowledge unless they have some knowledge local and know some things. But even then, leave some things. Do almost 2 map forms. Do a picture of the map before you put in all these ruins, and then have the finished map for you that they can fill in later on. So then the question is, where do you want them to explore? And then the question is, how do you want them to adventure? Do you want them to go somewhere on water? Do you want to have something that they can do going into the mountains? Again, as you create the terrain and the scenery, which is going to be the next part, really flesh it in a way that makes sense. Are there shipwrecks? Were there storms that hit the area? Is the area cold? Is the area warm? Temperature and climate are going to affect your parties wherever you go. And then, are there some special things about that city? So, in a fantasy campaign, you may look at, there's a castle there. In a sci-fi campaign, you may put a spaceport or something major, like a major industry in that town that really booms, that is kind of mysterious and leads the party to explore it a little more. So when you design out all these features, and I know, even in a city, you've got to give the what's and the whys, and as well as the realms, and as well as the world. So you're working your way out from a city to your realm to your world. And take it in little bites at a time. Otherwise, you're going to spend a year designing a homebrew, and you're going to be exhausted at the end of it. And then when your players play it, they will wear you out because they're not going to play it the way you envisioned it. They're going to take it some other direction. They're going to destroy something very beautiful to you. Recent thing on Critical Role, which is part of Geek and Sundry. Sadly, Matthew Mercer had to watch a city of his burn that he put so much time and effort into. And yet, he was excited anyways because the party built such a rich story from it. The Critical Rollers did such a great job just really doing it. And so, that's what you got to see, is that characters will and do sacrifice those places that you build up that could be their home city. So be prepared to lose them and move on to the next place for your story. That's why doing it a little bites at a time makes sense. You don't know if they're going to stay there. You don't know if they're going to go somewhere different. And if they do, then take the time to really flesh it out. That's why I say fleshing the surrounding areas or where you know they're going to adventure. And one thing with it, even though you love your homebrew, don't invest your emotions so much that if it all falls apart, you really take it personal and get burned out. A lot of burnouts from GMs come from the fact that they designed this, put their heart and soul into it, and the party really didn't, in their mind, appreciate it. Well, let me ask you something before you think about that. Did they really not appreciate it, or did they really enjoy it? Sometimes by going through and tromping through your campaign and running to new places and burning this place down and going to this place, they're actually enjoying your campaign much more than you think they are. The questions that you ask yourself is, are they ready to come back every week? Do they have questions? Are they really engaged? Are they trying to build their characters up more? Are they building more onto their history? Are they asking you about trying to flesh out more about their history? If so, your homebrew is a success, a massive success, because you have engaged the players to write the story. And so, thanks for listening this morning. Got to run, and I hope this helps at least with homebrew campaigns and helping you to outline them. Thanks.